And now a snapshot of stories making headlines on America Tonight. She was believed to be the world's oldest survivor of the Holocaust, and her life story, the subject of an Oscar-nominated documentary on the subject. Alice Harris Sommer died this weekend at the age of 110. The talented pianist spent her imprisonment in a labor camp performing for the Nazis. Federal authorities have taken embattled California State Senator Ron Calderon into custody. Calderon, who turned himself in earlier, faces multiple corruption counts involving fraud, bribes, and kickbacks. Prosecutors say Calderon accepted $100,000 in bribes in exchange for political favors. The Brooklyn Nets scored in more ways than one over the weekend. The NBA's first openly gay athlete, Jason Collins, checked in for the Nets' winning game against the Los Angeles Lakers. 35-year-old center signed a 10-day contract with the team almost 10 months after coming out about his sexuality. Many states are taking steps now to legalize gay marriage, while others are finding themselves in a continuing struggle over a controversial predicament. In Arizona, for example, outraged protesters spent the weekend outside their capital, demanding the Republican governor reject a bill that would allow businesses the right to refuse service to gay and lesbian customers on religious grounds. Meantime, in the northeastern United States, the state of marriage has dramatically changed for one couple. America Tonight's Adam May has their story.
Bob and Bill Sullivan have been together 22 years. They live with their dog Coco in the city of brotherly love. But the love they share is not legally recognized in their home state of Pennsylvania.
It's all about discrimination because people see us as some kind of freaks. We're just normal guys who fell in love with another guy and want to be able to express that.
The Sullivans were the very first couple to get married in the state of Vermont, just seconds after midnight on the day same-sex marriage became legal there in 2009. In 2011, they moved back to Philadelphia, only to find out their vows weren't valid.
We're fighting because we had that right, and it's been taken away from us just because we moved back home. So since it was taken away, we decided that it was appropriate for us to stand up and demand that they either recognize a Vermont marriage license or give us one that says Pennsylvania.
Despite what lawmakers here in Pennsylvania label you guys, what do you call each other?
I always say he's my husband.
And that's it. We're husbands.
Marriage equality, once again, is something very basic. People spend their lives together. They want to protect each other. It's all the things that people who are in a relationship want.
Ted Martin leads the advocacy group Equality Pennsylvania that works with other marriage equality proponents in the state. They've been waging a losing battle for years, but they think this year will be different.
The world is looking at Pennsylvania right now because the chance to do something is finally here.
Last fall, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the federal ban on same-sex marriage is unconstitutional, but the court still hasn't laid out how states should interpret that ruling.
This is probably, I would say, the most exciting time for marriage because there's so much discussion going on, there's so many lawsuits happening, there's so many things moving forward.
Despite Philadelphia's large and influential gay population, Pennsylvania is the only state in the Northeast that still defines marriage as between a man and a woman.
I think the common perception in Pennsylvania by Pennsylvanians and probably many people outside of the state is that, we're in the Northeast. We're certainly right up there with everybody else and as advanced as everyone else is on gay issues, on equality issues.
But the state includes largely conservative, rural areas and has a Republican-controlled state house.
Unfortunately, historically, we've had to go through legislature to make changes, and the legislature in Pennsylvania hasn't really been on board with making those changes.
Melissa Morris is working with the ACLU on a federal lawsuit.
We're asking both for the state to recognize out-of-state marriages of couples who have been legally married in other places, and we're asking for the state to also allow same-sex marriage within Pennsylvania.
For the Sullivans, action can't come soon enough.
It takes me back to being bullied on the playground. Who are you to tell me I can't do something that everybody else in this country has a right to do? It's infuriating.
Bill was a victim of gay bashing when he was a kid growing up in South Philadelphia. It left him with severe, uncontrollable seizures.
Groups of kids would jump me, 5 and 6 of them at a time. I had been beaten with bats several times.
His head's been split open quite a few times.
The medical rights that come with marriage are critical, since Bill's husband is his primary caregiver.
Legally, they don't recognize Bob as my next of kin. Bob is the one that knows all of my secrets and everything that is needed for the hospital to treat me. But they won't call him, and hell, they wouldn't even let him in the room if it was an emergency situation.
It's been left to the good conscience of individuals who have been very nice here in Philadelphia, but legally any doctor could put that wall up, and that's frightening as hell.
Despite everything these two men have been through, they're convinced things will eventually change.
You know, it's great that Philadelphia is still talking about this. You know, we're the beacon to the world of liberties. Once they pass legislation, which they will in Pennsylvania, of course this is going to happen. You know, we're still going to need, as that beacon, to continue to talk about this for the other states.
Adam May, Al Jazeera, Philadelphia.
More on the fight for marriage equality now. Looking throughout the country, John Lewis, the Legal and Policy Director with Marriage Equality USA, is with us this evening. John, appreciate your being with us. You know, we have just heard in Adam May's report a story about the Sullivans and Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, and really looking at this notion of a legislative resolution versus a litigation resolution. This is happening more and more.
Yes, absolutely. There are over 40 lawsuits in 25 different states in the United States now. And so we're seeing tremendous progress in the courts, actually, as federal courts in states as diverse as Utah and Oklahoma and Virginia and Kentucky are all siding on the side of the freedom to marry for all.
And in the litigation argument, are the same issues being raised? I mean, does it look like sort of the same pattern of litigation across the country?
Yes, they're very similar arguments because the United States Supreme Court this past summer in the Windsor case issued a landmark decision. And they said that the federal law that at that time excluded legally married same-sex couples from over 1,000 rights and protections under federal law that heterosexual couples have, they said that that was unconstitutional because it undermines the dignity and the respect that we should have for all American loving committed couples. And so that principle of respect and dignity now is being applied to many different states where they have state bans that exclude same-sex couples from being married in their home states.
And there also is a parallel action taking place at the state level versus the federal level, in that governors are taking a side that they're not going to take a side, stepping back from the equation?
Yes, it's a really positive sign just on all fronts, because we're seeing in states like Nevada and Virginia, both the governor and attorney general saying, look, these laws are unconstitutional. We are elected to protect all our citizens, not just some of them. And in Pennsylvania, in fact, the Attorney General of Pennsylvania said Pennsylvania's exclusion of same-sex couples from marriage is unconstitutional. Right. She refused to defend the law. The governor is, but she refused to.
I just need to step back, though, and say, look, we mentioned earlier the situation in Arizona. In that case, the community is trying to get the governor to go along with them. But this is legislation proposed that would say, look, you can not serve gay and lesbian couples in your business establishment. That doesn't seem like any sort of step toward marriage equality.
Yeah, obviously it's just a horrid law that we urge in the strongest terms for Governor Brewer to veto, and it's just a tremendous step backwards that we've been there in this country with laws like that said that certain people are not welcome at the lunch counter or at the restaurant or in the hotel, and we truly think this is a law that is horrible because it excludes people. The marriage equality movement is about our common humanity. And this is a law that tries to separate us. And can you just imagine, you know, two women come to a restaurant to have dinner, and is the maitre d' going to say, excuse me, are you lesbians? If so, you can't have dinner. If not, sure, come on in. It's just absurd. And we truly hope that Governor Brewer rejects it. And these laws, too, they've been established as unconstitutional.
Appreciate your being with us, John Lewis, Legal and Policy Director, Marriage Equality USA. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
After a break on America Tonight, a promise from one parent to to another.
She said, just promise me one thing, that you'll take care of Dad.
Our series of reports, Aging America, begins with a look at the silent army of caregivers facing the hard decisions and difficult choices of parenting their parents.